what I am sharing with you during these 8 classes, although it can be so triggering, is actually very simple. And it doesn't want to take anything from you. These teachings, myself included, the teachings and myself, neither of us want to take anything from you. We want to give. We want to give you back your sane mind. And so remind yourself that this is a safe place. These teachings are ultimately beautiful. If they're triggering at first, I understand. I've been doing this for a long time. But as we move through those triggers and we get down to the core of it, you're going to realize that the message of this work is so simple. It is simply that only love is real. Full stop. That's it. That's these teachings. Only love is real. And what we have to do is we have to clear up our misperceptions so that we can see that. So that when we're walking around, our eyes are wide open to the truth. Our internal eyes, our external eyes, everything, right? Nice and simple. So we have come from learning about miracles as opposed to manifestation. We talked about how when we clear our mind and we move from a place of love, we create miracles. And if we're coming from a place of lack, of fear, which is what we call the ego, we're going to try and manifest in order to get what we want. But if we haven't cleared up our misperceptions of lack and limitation and separation, we're going to be like a hungry ghost. So we don't want to create in that way. We want to clear the belief in separation so that we can create from the present moment through extending ourselves. And that is what generates miracles. We went through that in class 1. Class 2 was a bit more metaphysical and mechanical. We looked at the split that never happened. We went back to the original story and said, we were created in the likeness of our creator. We are creative, infinite creative potential, spirit. And we, in our infinite creative potential, decided to play a game of separation. It never really happened. We cannot separate from love. We cannot separate from our source, but we can believe that we do. If we believe that we are separate from love, we can create a whole mental projection in our mind. So we talked about that in depth in class 2. In class 3, I introduced the idea that only love is real, and we spent quite a long time talking about the difference between the 2 voices that we have access to within our mind. After last class, I talked to a couple of people about language, and so I just want to bring this up right now, because a few people came back and they said, do we have to use these very almost religious words like God, like Christ, like Holy Spirit? And I really thought about this. Firstly, you guys, I am not religious. I am anti-religious. I am anti-dogma. I'm not part of any, whatever you call it, formation of ideas that blocks out other ideas. I am just a soul who is absolutely dedicated to liberating my mind. And I believe that radical forgiveness is one of the most powerful ways to resolve a misperception in the mind. And so even though I'm using certain terms, I want you to know I'm not stuck in any dogmatic box. I spent my whole life trying to get out of that. When I was a kid, it's the last thing I ever wanted to do. I wanted to fly. I wanted to be free. But because I am sharing from the Course in Miracles, I do want to use the language that they use, because if some of you go on to study that, I want it to make sense. And if I come up with a whole bunch of new terms and new language, it's actually more complicated over time. Then you have to decipher that. The other thing is, and I want you to take this very seriously, language triggers us for a reason. And I understand that there is a lot of religious trauma that hangs out in our subconscious, whether we grew up religious or not. There's a lot of conditioning in our mind around religion. And so when we hear certain words, it's actually hitting on the trauma within our subconscious mind. That is what a trigger is. And there's a huge amount of emotional charge underneath words like God, Christ, Holy Spirit, love, reality, illusion, ego, fear, heaven, hell. Huge amount of charge. If we really think about it, wars have been fought over these words. People have been killed over these words. Families have disintegrated over these words. So The emotional charge that comes up in our body when we hear these words is actually pointing to subconscious beliefs. And if we dig down under those beliefs, guess what we're going to find? We're going to find a belief in separation. We're going to find guilt. We're going to find shame. We're going to find fear. And actually, what this work is asking us to do is to go into those triggers, find that belief, and resolve them. And so it doesn't really matter where you are in your journey. At some point, we're going to need to resolve all of that. And so instead of trying to pacify the ego and using different language, I would rather point to the trigger. And as we continue on our journey together, go into it so that we can resolve the conditioning that we have so that we can liberate our mind. We're going to have to forgive religion at some point. We're going to have to forgive our brothers and sisters all around the planet from the beginning of history for all the insane things they have done in the name of love, in the name of God, in the name of the Holy Spirit. So I just wanted to think about that because I really decided that I am going to continue using the language because I think it is helpful. And I think if we can use language to heal our mind, this is not a bad thing. In saying that, I'm going to give you a couple of different terms for the Holy Spirit that I also think are amazing because in Course in Miracles is very, very adamant about this. This is a self-study program. This is something that you are doing for yourself. It is psychological mastery. And because we are creators and creation begins with our mind, everything that we create comes from mind and everything that we want to adjust needs to be in the mind. So this is a psychological mastery program. Course in Miracles is adamant that this is something you do on your own for yourself. And a consequence of that is that you do it for everybody else. And that really the core premise of this is how do you discover the sane voice in your own mind and develop a relationship with that voice? That is what the Course calls the Holy Spirit. How do you develop a personal relationship with the Holy Spirit so that you can work with that part of your mind to clear up misperceptions? We do that through a process of radical forgiveness. And so the Holy Spirit can also be called the sane mind within you, your sane mind. It is in your mind. It's with you all the time. It can also be called, and I love this one, teacher of truth, teacher of knowledge, the inner guide, your inner teacher that knows the truth about you and everybody else that you are attempting to develop a relationship with so that you can work with this part of yourself to clear up your misperceptions. We can also call it voice of love. So there are numerous terms that point to the same thing. We ended last class saying that the function of the teacher of knowledge within you is to help you clear up misperceptions so that you can see the truth. That's it. That's its job. Beautiful thing about the teacher of knowledge is that it knows who everyone is, which is so lovely, which means that the guidance that it gives you is always going to be in the highest and best for everybody involved. Okay? We talked about how challenging it is to decipher between the voice of knowledge, the voice of love, the Holy Spirit, and the ego, the voice of fear, because they can sound like they're your voice. They can feel like they're coming from in your own mind. The difference is in how they feel. The difference is in how they feel. Fear has a very specific quality to it. It's anxious. It attacks, it defends, it overanalyzes, it's confusing, it contradicts itself. It's the chitter chatter that's going on all the time. It has no grounding for reality. It actually doesn't know what it's talking about. It's very confusing. And the challenge with the ego is it can learn a lot of smart words and sound smart, but if you really dig down into its philosophy, you get to a point where you go, it doesn't make any sense. There's no sense, it's nonsense. And you've got to start to feel what that feels like in your body. In your body and your mind. We'll talk about the body a lot over the next few classes. Whereas the Holy Spirit, the voice of love, the teacher of truth, is very grounded, it's very clear, and when you tap into it, whether your ego likes it or not, the feeling is, oh, that's true. The feeling is, I know that's right. I know that's right. Teacher of love is never going to tell you to hate somebody else, even if you want to. The teacher of love is never going to tell you that someone else is guilty, even if you want to believe it. Teacher of love is never going to say you're guilty, even if you think you are. And so even if you don't like what the teacher of truth has to say, you will know deep down that it is the truth because there's a part of you that feels it. Today's class, we're going into mirrors. And I'm going to put everything that we've talked about from class 1, 2, and 3 together in today's class. And hopefully, by the end of this class, you're going to go, I see what we're up to here. And then we're going to get deeper and deeper in the next 4 classes after this. In order to talk about mirrors, I want to share a couple of things that come from one of my favorite chapters in the Course in Miracles. Chapter 10, verse 8, I believe, because in this one page, it's one page, it clears up so much. And I was reading it the other day, I'm like, damn, whoever wrote this book, aka the Holy Spirit, voice of knowledge, was damn wise, because there's so much in every sentence. So at the beginning of this chapter, it talks about the difference between perception and reality. And there is a difference between perception and reality. We have to go back to talking about God. Not a man in the clouds, obviously, not a man at all, but this present moment, this creative, infinite present moment. God, creator, only creates what is eternal. Think about this. It only creates what is eternal. That means that God does not create anything that dies, that decays, that disintegrates, that ends. God only creates what is like itself, what is eternal, what is loving, what is kind. So God created us. The way that love creates, and you do this in your life too, we all do it. This is something we have access to all the time. Love creates through extension, through giving, through sharing love. It's pretty simple. A thought that comes purely from love is how you create in love. A word that comes from the pure present moment of love is how you're creating with words. An action taken from this pure present moment of love is how you create in love, and it's an extension. Anything that you create in love stays. It's eternal. It doesn't disintegrate. It doesn't die. It's beautiful. If you create something that disintegrates, that dies, that decays, it's not coming from the pure present moment. It's coming from a belief in separation. And we can do that. So here's how it works. God created us. We are eternal, loving, pure, creative awareness, capable of creating. We can create worlds. We can create universes. We're all creators. That's why if we don't create in our lives, we feel very stagnant. Because of our free will choice and the infinite creative potential that we were given, we can create duality. It's not real, but we can create a universe that seems dual. We can believe in separation. That can create an experience of guilt, which it does. That guilt can be something we don't want to look at because we don't like facing certain things that we deem to be bad. We do it in our lives. It's a mirror of how we still function. We can then project that guilt outwards into the creation of a universe in our mind. Everything you see, look around the room. Just look around right now. Look out beyond the computer. Everything that you see out there is a mental creation. This is our creation. We created this world. We being the creation of God, which Course in Miracles calls Christ, doesn't matter. Creation, creative child, doesn't matter. I don't care about the words. We are creative children. We created this world as an attempt to project our guilt outside of ourselves. This world is a fragmentation of our mind. The more I think about this, the more it makes sense to me, because if you look out at the world, everything is symbolic of separation. 8 billion different people, that's symbolic of separation. Because you can now look at everybody and say, oh, well, that's not me, that's not me, that's not me. They're separate, they're separate, they're separate. That tree, that's not me. That house, that's not me. That country, that's not my country. It's all separation. Even from the moment that we have children and we birth them and we cut the umbilical cord, it is symbolic of separation. Again and again and again, there's separation. We see it mirrored again and again. We come together in relationships, we separate. Separation. We come together in marriage, we separate. We love people and then they die. Separation. We love animals and they die. Separation. So this is a symbolic world created from our own mind in separation. And it is reflective of the belief in separation because everything looks separate to us. God cannot create a world of separation because God is eternal oneness. But us, in our forgetfulness, can create a world that looks like it is decaying and changing and separate, right? So we have to see the process. You have to understand this because we get very, very confused when we start thinking that God created the world. It sounds nice. It's very new agey. It's very new agey. It sounds very good. But then it brings up 10,000 questions you can't answer. Like, well, if God created the world, why is there war? Why is there famine? Why is there so much horror here? Why isn't God, I thought God was loving and I'm suffering. So why did he create me to suffer? And the answer is, it didn't. God created you to create, and we did this. This is our painting right now. So the first part of this, let's say the first mistake, it's ultimately not a mistake because we're creative. You need to think of yourself as an artist. I think this is the best way to do it. You have to think of yourself as an artist, and you got to think about the art piece that you're creating. The first mistake, artistically speaking, is that you thought you were separate from God. You thought you were separate from love. First mistake. Mistake not being something you did wrong, but something that is not true. That created subconscious guilt. Think about it. If you think that you just separated yourself from love, that's pretty horrifying. We talked about this before. If you were like, oh my God, I just separated from love, that's terrifying. That's horrifying. Not just because it's scary to be separate from love, but it's also a feeling. And I think this is where all the guilt comes from. If I did that, what a terrible thing I did. How bad am I to throw this gift of love and, to pull myself away from my father, my mother, whatever word you want to give it. And so that guilt arises. The second mistake we made is that we didn't look at it. We didn't turn around and look at the guilt and find that it was coming from a belief in separation and resolve it. Every one of us still does this in our life today. How many times does a negative emotion arise, and instead of going, I'm going to look at that, go into it, feel it, find the belief that's creating it and resolve it there, we try and project it out of ourselves. We deny it, we suppress it, we blame somebody else for it, we look outwards, we run, we do everything we can not to go through the emotional experience back to the core and resolve it there. And so this was our second mistake. Even at the beginning, we didn't want to face the guilt. We said, this is way too painful. And so instead of trying to resolve the guilt, we projected it. We projected it into the creation of this world. So they were our first two movements, or our first two mistakes in this creation. Different metaphysical teachings actually talk about this. I was speaking with Vanessa the other day, and we're talking about the Kabbalah, and there's these two movements. And I haven't studied that text deeply, but there were these two movements, and they mirror this same idea of believing that we're separate and then creating a projected world or a big bang that allowed us to seemingly throw ourselves outside of ourselves. Because if you look around right now, it feels pretty separate, doesn't it? So that's the first movement. That is projection. Interestingly, the creation of this world that you're creating in your mind, and by you I mean us, it's all one mind, the creation of this world, the projection of this world on its own is no actual problem because there's no inherent meaning in it, right? If you're creating a movie or you're creating an art piece, let's stick with the art theme today. Let's say that you're painting on a canvas. If you're just painting and you just put it there, but you aren't giving it any meaning, it's not going to make you feel any particular way. And so at first, the world is neutral. The next phase of this experience, if we're looking at this as a process, the next thing that happens is that you start interpreting the world you created. Just like if you're painting on a canvas and you start interpreting your own painting, you're going to start creating an experience for yourself of that painting. This is where mirrors come into the conversation, because what you're looking at in the world is a reflection of your own projection. Do you hear that? I'll say it again. What you're looking at in the world, looking out at in the world. Let's have a look. Trees, buildings, other people, the room, the cushions, the pillows, everything that you see around you, right? Look around. This is a reflection of your mental creation. And the meaning that you give everything that you see is going to be reinterpreted in your mind, and it's going to create the experience you are having of what you're looking at. In this way, you are the one who projected, created the world, made the images that you are seeing, and now are interpreting those images and creating an experience of the world you're seeing. That is how you create, right? And when we are creating from a belief of separation, we create what looks like a dual world. Following so far? I hope so. If you get confused, if anything gets sticky, write down questions. We'll answer them a bit later on in the call. When you look out at the world and you start giving everything that you see meaning, and you start experiencing that meaning, it's very easy for your mind to convince you you're right. Right? Think about a tree. This is such a simple one. Think about a tree. How many people around the world do you think have different definitions of that tree? How many cultures have come up with different meanings, different definitions of the tree? Thousands. And so people have different experiences of what the tree means. And everybody thinks they're right. Everybody thinks that their interpretation of the tree is correct. And yet, they're all different definitions. So who's right? Now, some people would say, well, they're all correct. Everyone's perspective is right. While the ultimate truth would say, well, actually, you're all incorrect. Because as long as you are misperceiving what reality is, it isn't the ultimate truth. It's just your truth. And so there's a big difference between your truth and the ultimate truth. In the Course in Miracles, this whole teaching is about clearing up your misperceptions of what reality is so that you can see the truth. The truth with a capital T is a truth that when we all see it, we share. We share. It's not different. So there's a lot of people who walk around the world right now, and they're all arguing to have their own perspective, and they're all saying, well, that's my truth, and that's my truth, and that's my truth. And sure, you're allowed to do that. Within the creative potential, you are allowed to have different perspectives, of course, no problem. But it doesn't mean it's the ultimate truth. It doesn't even mean you're correct. The ultimate truth is something we share. When we all touch the ultimate truth, we agree. We say that is the ultimate truth. The next thing to understand, which I think is my favorite personal lesson of the week, is that the ego, again, a belief, structure, that's all it is. It's not a real thing. It's not an entity. It's not something you'll ever find. It's just a bunch of beliefs. The ego, a bunch of beliefs based in separation, survives, hear this, by mixing truth and illusion. It convinces you that both are correct. The ego, again, a thought system, a way that you're seeing the world, couldn't possibly only look at illusion. You wouldn't survive this world if you didn't get to see some truth. A world without truth, a world without love, is very disturbing to the mind. And so for most people, we let in a little bit of truth, but we also let in a whole lot of lies. And so our minds are completely, well, it's a kaleidoscope of contradiction. Most people's minds are a kaleidoscope of contradiction. I know this because I do hypnosis sessions with people, and it's amazing how when we get down into the subconscious, people are saying the most contradictory things again and again and again and again. I believe love is all there is. I know love is all there is, but I don't think that I am worthy. That's a contradiction. How could love be all there is and you be unworthy? I believe that God is goodness, and yet I believe there's evil in the world. I believe that I can't be a failure, and I am a failure. I believe that people are all good, but some people should be punished because they're bad. All of these contradictions. And it's in most of our minds. And here is what you need to understand about this. If you accept both to be true, you literally neutralize your ability to discern between what is real and what is an illusion. That is the most important thing that you may hear in this whole class. As long as you have decided that both lies and the truth are real, you neutralize your capacity to discern between truth and illusion. It means that you're confused as hell. And that's really my definition of hell. That's confusion. Confusion and hell are the same thing. If you're confused, you're living in a state of psychological hell. This is very challenging because if you are accepting that everything's the truth, then every text that you read will confuse you. Every person you listen to will confuse you. You won't be able to tell the difference between your guidance system and what is the ego. And so the practice, as we get deeper into radical forgiveness, is this uncompromising, and I mean uncompromising willingness to focus on what is real and completely begin to dismiss through radical forgiveness what is a lie. I'm going to show you how to do that in our exercise today. For example, so that this lands practically, let's say that you're looking at another person. And this other person is doing a dance of stupidity in front of you. And I'm sure we can all think of somebody who does a dance of stupidity in our lives. If we focus on their stupidity and we start projecting onto that person that they are an idiot, we are in a state of confusion because the truth is they are not an idiot. They are the perfect, innocent creation of God. Everybody's innocent. Everybody is love. Everybody is the Christ mind. Everybody is as God created us, right? We're perfect. We're spirit. We're pure loving awareness. That is what we all are. Now, if you are looking at that person and you are convincing yourself that they are both an idiot and perfect, you can't see the difference. You're still lost in some confusion. As the mind clears itself up, you actually become absolutely convinced that everybody is pure loving awareness. You can still see the ego structure, but you have no doubt in your mind that's who they are. You have no doubt that is not who they are, right? You can't have both. You can't have both. Somebody can't be an idiot and also pure loving awareness. And you got to get your mind clear. You can't be both. You can't be both innocent, perfect, eternal loving awareness and a decaying, dying failure of a person. You can't have both. In this way, you just don't get to have your cake and eat it too. You don't get to have two teachers, you'll go crazy because they're telling you different things all the time. You don't get to ride two horses going in different directions. That comes from Course in Miracles. You'll be split right in half. So uncompromising willingness to only focus on the truth means that you decide that you are only going to listen to the voice of love and you're going to ask that teacher of truth to clear your mind until you only see love in everything, in everything. Now, I know that brings up questions about boundaries. I understand that. But you've got to understand that love knows how to set boundaries better than fear does. And so if you want to understand how to interact with other people who are still lost in the dream, you still have to get into your sane mind first. Because fear is never going to figure this out. Fear, the ego, is always going to react to people in terms of offense and attack, defense and attack. Offense, defense, and attack. So we don't want to come from that place. We want to clear our mind and come from love, and we want to create our boundaries and our interactions with people from a clear mind. And you can absolutely see clearly and still navigate this world very sanely. In fact, it's the only way to navigate this world sanely. So you have to decide, I am no longer going to believe in lies. I'm no longer going to do that. And that means about anybody. That's not just about other people and the world. You have to stop believing in lies about yourself. And you have to be committed to giving up the horrendous stories that you tell yourself about yourself. I was telling my team yesterday that the only thing I require of them from now on is to daily talk to themselves so beautifully. No more sitting around in your bedroom thinking shitty thoughts about yourself. No, You're not allowed. You're not allowed. If we're going to do this, we're going to be committed to thinking we're amazing and reminding each other every single day that we are the innocent children of God, infinite, pure, loving, creative potential. And that is who we are. And we have to be so dedicated to only focusing on that. Now, as I say that, that does not mean denying negative emotions. That is not this teaching. This is not a suppression teaching. This is not a bypassing teaching. This is not a positive affirmation teaching. This is a teaching that says the truth is that you are love. The truth is that everybody's innocent. If at any given moment you are triggered, this is the signpost that you need to use to dig into your subconscious mind to remove the belief system that is telling you that you are something that you are not. And so when negative emotion arises, we're meant to go into it to resolve it so that we can keep focusing on love. We do not deny anything. This is the opposite of bypassing. We bypassed the very first time we thought we were separate and felt guilt. We tried to get out of feeling the guilt. We bypassed our experience, we projected this whole illusion, and then we tried to blame everybody else for how we feel. That was the first bypass. We're not doing that anymore. We have to go into the guilt. We have to go into the embarrassment. We have to go into the stress. We have to go into the trigger. We're going to talk about this a lot next week. And we got to go down and we got to find the beliefs that are creating those experiences. And we've got to call upon the teacher of truth to help us change our perception so that we can see love. That's it. So this is not a bypassing teaching. This is about being uncompromising in a desire to only see the truth.